Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is Timothy Terwilliger. Timothy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I got a couple questions, Tim. I kind of like to ask all my guests just to kind of get the conversational ball rolling, so to speak. So the first question I would like to ask you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
I don't know if everybody can say the same, but Ronnie Coleman's always going to be my number one. Just who he is as a person is just, I mean, we all know he was so genetically blessed, and I think it was his third Mr. Olympia before he even was on any kind of metabolics. He's just, his attitude is just electric, and I think that was demonstrated in his workouts. And you see a lot of the people in the gyms nowadays, I call it fake motivation. It's like they're tryhards. Ronnie was a do hard. He was never a fake motivation. It's just who he was, and I love that. So Ronnie's my number one. My number two is Dorian. I feel like Dorian, he had great genetics, but his work ethic and how hard he worked to get to where he was, it was just incredible, and it's unparalleled. But I mean, look, anybody who wins any Mr. Olympia, their work ethic is amazing. But I feel like coming from where Dorian was to where he got to, his work ethic just spoke volumes. And again, he wasn't a try hard; he was a do hard. Him and Ronnie, but I mean, everybody's a do hard that wins a Mr. Olympia title, whether there's 1, 4, or 8. But I think those two guys I just kind of gravitated towards them as who they were as people beyond bodybuilders.
Yeah. So this is a question that I find interesting, but kind of just backing off what you just said, or piggybacking off what you said, do you believe that we'll ever see a physique like Ronnie Coleman's in his prime ever again, or not?
It's tough. We look at who we have today, right? The first two things that come into mind are, Big Ramy and Nick Walker, right? They have their own freak factor for sure. Derek Lunsford is right there too, going from 212 to now open, insane freak factor, the density. I'd say Derek's more like Lee Priest than anything with, the short, stocky build, but Ronnie just had different lines with density, symmetry. I don't, Phil Heath, he's got these titles, but I don't think we'll ever see anybody like we haven't. If there's any prospects, they're like 18 or 19 years old and they haven't blossomed yet. Ramy's got his own side of freak factor, his own side of being big. Ronnie was just a different breed. I don't see anybody as of yet that was like Ronnie.
I agree with you 100%. So thought it would be a fun question to ask, though. Okay. So at what age, Tim, did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that specific age?
16. I'm 32 now. Was born in 1990, and I maybe it was for football. I grew up playing football, all the sports, soccer, wrestling, the whole nine. But at 16, I started working out. We were forced to work out for football. And I remember I'm like, oh, sick. I PR'd on 175 for bench. And I thought that was huge. And it was for 16, I guess. But then I started to buy weights from, weight bets from Walmart, and then different Olympic weights and bars from, I think it was Craigslist. And I built a gym in my parents' basement. And I just fell in love with it. I had like 8 to 10 friends that would come over, 4 or 5 times a week. We would just train hard, turn the music up as loud as we could. And I don't know if it was a serotonin. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was getting bullied as a kid. And, I have a twin brother, and growing up, we were smaller. And there's always bullies, but I don't know. I don't know what it was. I fell in love with it. I feel like everybody has their thing in life. And when you know, and I just found out at 16 that this was my thing in life.
Cool. We're going to get more into your bodybuilding story here in a minute. But before we do, why don't you talk a little bit more about your childhood? Where did you actually grow up? You mentioned you had a twin brother. Touch a little bit maybe more on some of the sports you played, maybe some of the takeaways from those sports. up to about high school, and then I got some questions to kind of transition us from there.
Sure. So I grew up in New Hartford, Connecticut. Uh, the house that my parents still live in, my dad built with his own hands. You know, it was we grew up on 10 acres, quads, dirt bikes. We had every kid's dream growing up. I mean, there was times where, winters were tough. It was cold and we couldn't afford fuel oil, and we'd have to stay warm by the fire or whatever it may be. But my dad always unapologetically put his family first. He had his own business, so he did construction, tree work, stuff like that. And during the winter, you can't dig foundations because the ground's frozen solid. So there were times where like it was tough growing up, but the one thing that my family always had, if me and my brothers fought, or if my parents got into an argument, we always had love in our household. And we grew up in a Christian house. We went to church every Sunday. We could ride our bicycles to church. But it was a house full of love. No matter where you come from, what family you are, there's going to be arguments, and it wasn't a regular thing. But when we'd have arguments, we'd make up with love. And I think our house is always filled with love. And we were the house, the kind of the center of all of our friends that would come to. We were just so hospitable, and my parents are still that way to this day. So we had a really good upbringing. We went to Christian school from fourth grade to ninth grade, and then we went to public school at 10th grade. And I think that was a good transition. But growing up, we played soccer, football, basketball. I was always more, I guess, athletically inclined to have like the combat sports, I guess you could say, like football, stuff like that. I was good at soccer. I was pretty decent at basketball, but my twin brother kind of excelled at basketball and stuff like that. My older brother, he's 3 years older. He was a good basketball player, but we had every kid's dream. We had 10 acres. We grew up on dirt bikes and quads, and parents that loved us, and put us first. So
Cool. Now you mentioned being bullied a little bit earlier. Talk to us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
yeah, when I was in Christian school, he's still my friend to this day, Jeff Seltzer. Great guy. He's got 3 kids and a wife now. But I was in fourth grade, and like we kind of got picked on there. And maybe it's because we were the new kids, maybe because it was smaller. But I just remember not really being able to like fight back. And we wore ties to Christian school. I remember one time he like swung me around for my tie, and like he was bigger than me. I couldn't do anything. And I feel like maybe I was definitely emotional growing up. I mean, even now, like I wear my emotions on my sleeves. So maybe that was exploited. Kids will be kids. Um, I got to a certain point where like we have really good genetics in the Terwilliger family. We're all pretty fit. We're all pretty strong. I was able to build on that. Um, but I got to a point where like I'm not gonna get bullied anymore. I fought back, and I would always. I remember in third grade, before going to Christian school, there was this kid who was kind of a loser. He would always be by himself, and like I would gravitate to him and be like, "Hey, what's your name? My name's Tim. Let's hang out. Let's play." Like I'd always stand up for the less fortunate. I'd always, associate with people that were getting bullied. I was very popular growing up, but I always had a heart and compassion for those that were a little weirder. And in high school, which we'll get to, I kind of transitioned that into like, oh, you're gonna bully him, bully me. Go ahead, bully me. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like I just have compassion for. I don't care who it is. I don't care what walk of life they're from, but like we're all equal. Like nobody's gonna bully anybody.
Cool, man. Okay, so then once you kind of get into high school, some of us, not all of us, kind of start thinking about like, what we're going to do after high school, what we want to do, quote unquote, when we grow up, right? Some sort of job, career, college. So what were you thinking about in terms of those type of things when you were in high school, Tim? And then once you graduated, how did life kind of unfold for you?
Yeah, it's deep. So went to high school. Went to Northwestern Regional 7 in Winsted, Connecticut. Um, I did a semester of college at Punxsutawney Community College in Farmington, Connecticut. And college just wasn't really for me. Like I had never a desire to go away to school. I didn't care about like to this day, I'm 32. I've never had a sip of alcohol. I've never smoked marijuana. I've never done any drugs other than anabolics. But I've never had that desire to do anything in that, arena that's mind altering or, detrimental to your health. So that was never appealing to me. So when I got out of college, when I got out of high school, I ended up having 3 different jobs at once. And then I ended up actually going to the Marine Corps. The jobs I had was I was working with intellectually disabled people. I was working at Dunkin' Donuts, and I was working construction. And I was working 7 days a week. It was nonstop. But I had a strong urge and desire to. When September 11th happened, I was 11 years old, 2001. I went up into my room and I wrote a note and I put it under my headboard. And it was a note of, when I become of age type deal and how I'm going to join the military and I'm going to go fight the bad guys, even though the bad guys is our own government, but I'm going to go fight the bad guys, I'm going to kill the terrorists and so on and so forth. But that's always the patriotic side of me has always been a part of me. My first tattoo was American flag, eagle on my chest. It's always been a part of me. So I went to the Marine Corps in 2009. I had 2.5 months on Paris Island. I was platoon 3040 India Company. I turned 19 on April 8th in boot camp. That was fun. And I ended up coming down with a staph infection, MRSA. It was in my nasal cavity. It was my 17th time having it. So going into the Marine Corps, I had to get a waiver because I had MRSA 16 times prior. I picked it up from dirty wrestling mats in Hartford, Connecticut from wrestling. So I hadn't had it for like 8 months. They let me go to boot camp. All of a sudden I come down with it. I'm like, oh no, I'm like, I got, 3-4 weeks left till graduation, whatever. It just took over my whole face. So I couldn't hide it. They sent me to the BUMED at Beaufort, North Carolina. And they put me in recruit separation platoon and ended up discharging me for medical reasons. And the day that I left the island, it was kind of hard, was the day that my platoon graduated. June 19th, I think it was. And it was pretty difficult. For the next 3 to 5 years, I would send letters, try to get back in, re-enlist. And, this is what I'm going to do. But oftentimes the plans that we have are different than the plans that God has for us. And I had to sit back and realize that, I'm being Jonah in the whale, it's a famous Bible story. And I'm trying to go this way when God has me, different direction in life. So I just kind of accepted that it wasn't in my cards to get back into the Marine Corps. I ended up meeting this girl, Missy. She was from Canada. We hit it off really quick, got engaged really quick. She stayed with me in America for, 6 months. Her visa was up and we ended up getting married. She's an IFBB Pro. She was when we got married. She did, fitness and figure. We were married for a little less than 3 years, together for 6 or 7. And then we ended up getting a divorce. I'll never say anything bad about Misty. She's a phenomenal girl. She's remarried. I'm remarried. I have a family now. But she was a great wife. We were roommates and we worked. I had a supplement company at that time. We worked together every single day. We had no time to miss each other. And I think that was one of the biggest things that separated us in our marriage. And she's won a few, I think 1 or 2 Olympias, a couple Arnolds, but she's doing her thing. And I'm blessed enough to have met Natalie now, my wife. We met right after the divorce. Natalie, it's like I go from one crazy athlete to another crazy athlete. Natalie's a USA rugby player. She played for Team USA for quite a few years. We have a beautiful family together. We got married this past June. We have a 3-year-old son, Maverick. We have a daughter on the way, Eliana Ray. She'll be here in December. And it's great. Everything was great. So that was like the fast tracked journey. But I've done a lot in between these last 10, 12 years that, we could touch more on if you'd like. But
yeah, for sure. So let's kind of just stay where we're at in terms of kind of like, business career, and then we'll kind of backtrack into bodybuilding. So now I know that you own some supplement stores or supplement shops now, and you just kind of alluded to that with your first wife. So talk about once you kind of finally knew that, hey, I'm not going to get back into the Marines. First of all, was that kind of a hard pill for you to swallow? And then like when you were kind of trying to figure all that stuff out, I mean, is that when you started working at a supplement shop? Talk about how you kind of got into the supplement shop business realm.
So I got into the supplement industry in 2008, 2009. iForce had reached out to me. Dave Nelson owned it at the time, and they wanted to sponsor me. I hadn't even done a bodybuilding show yet. I'm some kid from New Hartford. I'm not even that big. I'm probably 210 pounds. But they wanted to sponsor me. So I ended up getting sponsored with iForce, going to different, events, Arnold, Olympia, working different expos. It was a great time. Became friends with Dusty Hanshaw. I really looked up to Dusty. He was and still is, excuse me, a great guy. And just kind of getting engrossed into this narcissistic but fun arena that like the fitness bodybuilding scene was. In doing that, I was still writing letters to different generals in the Marine Corps saying, hey, my separation code is RE3P, my reentry code is JFV1. Let me get in, please. Like, I know I can do it. I haven't had MRSA in 3 years now. Please let me get in. So one day I was like 23, 24. I finally just let it to rest. And at like 25, the Marines called me, like, hey, you want to get back in? I'm like, where were you 2 years ago? I'm like, no, I'm all set. So I made peace with that for sure. I'm friends with like all my drill instructors, the guys I was in boot camp with. They did different tours, different countries, Afghanistan, Iraq, and one of the guys that was in the squad bay above us, Mason Neff, he actually ended up getting the high, I think, Medal of Honor. He jumped on a grenade to save his buddy's life, and he almost died. He had a bunch of surgeries, but he's still here with us. But yeah, it was a good time. It was the worst time of my life, but the best time of my life. Boot camp. But the boot camp doesn't really replicate the fleet in the Marine Corps. But yeah, it was a good time. And then, so fast forward, during trying to get back in the Marine Corps, stuff like that, I ended up. So Tim Gritzman was he was an RDM, regional district manager for GNC. He had 32 stores under him, and he ended up just recently getting a job with Natural Body Inc. in New York. Steve Calabrese owns that store, so he'd reached out to me saying, "Hey, like, we sell iForce. I've been following you. You're a really cool dude. Would you like to work for us?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So I moved to New York City, I think at 21, maybe 20. And I started running. I remember I worked 47 days straight. It was a lot. I was signed up for it, but I was renting a little 1-bedroom apartment in Howard Beach, old Howard Beach, John Gotti's neighborhood. And it was cool. It was fun. It was a different experience. And, I learned a lot. I realized then that like I love talking to people. Like this sounds so bad. I love people, but like sometimes like I cannot stand people. But like that's when when you're dealing with people all day, every day. So Natural Body was a great experience. Worked there for a couple years. Left there for a different opportunity in Georgia for supplement manufacturing. Moved from Georgia to Florida. Saw some shady stuff going on in Florida for sales and manufacturing for a certain company. And I said, I could do this on my own, and went home. 2014, moved into my parents' house, married with 4 wiener dogs, and started TLM research at the time. Yeah, it was 2014. We started TLM research. That was successful, but the problem, I have people all the time that go, "Oh, I want to start something company." Don't do it. If you're going to do it, go direct to Amazon. Go to Amazon, because if you figure out the jungle, the Amazon beast that it is, you'll do really well. But there's so much competition to get into retail stores nowadays. Everybody's got similar products. What's going to make you different? And I went from year 1, 90,000, year 2, 150,000, year 3, 450, year 4, 600, then 700. And it's great, but I'm seeing no money. I'm just barely paying my bills. And the reason being is if I have 2 products, a pre-workout and a pump product, well, each one needs 2 flavors. So now I have 4 products. Well, now people want more flavors. So now I have 8 products. Well, people want more products. And I have a fat burner and an amino acid. Okay, that's great. We need more products. So I have amino acids, and I have laxogen and epicatogen. So it's constantly reinvesting into the brand. And I was in over 500 stores nationwide. I was in 10 different countries. We were very popular in India, Singapore, Australia, big POs. There's not a lot of profit that I was making. The most profit is direct to consumer, and the best way to do that is Amazon. Just control it. You can't. There's a certain way to do it. And I think anybody who's getting into the supplement industry that wants to do a supplement company, fine. It's America. Do what you want. Be different. Have something that's really good products, good formulas at a good price, good marketing. But it's going to be very uphill battle if you go, wholesale to stores.
Hmm. So then, how did that kind of then lead into where you're at currently in terms of the supplement stores that you own?
So TLM Research, you you had you'd make 100 calls a day to stores across, the country or the world. Out of 100 calls, you'd get 95 that basically give you the middle finger, hang up on you, we're rude to you. 5 would be maybes. 3 would say send me samples. 1 or 2 you'd land a sale. That wasn't my passion. Again, going back to our upbringing, we're very hospitable. The Terwilliger family is always, if this is the last shirt I have and I don't even know you and you need my shirt, I'm going to give you my shirt. I'll go buy another one. So I wasn't able to stimulate that side of me with supplement sales over the phone. So I got back into retail, which I enjoyed. I could talk to people, I could help people. And I think, we're all on this earth for different reasons. I know I have different gifts. I think one of the biggest gifts that I have, maybe it's from my parents, is helping people. I enjoy people. If I see somebody on the street, I'll stop and help them. Or, I'm not going to get into all the things that I do or that I've done. Is, I'm not here to, gloat or anything like that. But getting back into why I got into Sup Life, it's just, I know the supplement retail arena pretty well. And I know that I can offer something that no one else has. And I'm going on 4 years now, and I have 15 people who are trying to franchise right now. I have a lot of different lessons, hard lessons I've learned along the last 3, 4 years. My very first year of business, or this, I guess, so 2019, we opened up. 2020, I brought this kid in on my partner. He was my manager. Long story short, end of 2020, I ended up suing him. He stole $262,000 from my business. 144,000 of that, which is a government loan, an SBA loan that my business is still on the hook. And he took that and absconded to Alabama and started a new store. He's an arrest warrant in Connecticut. The feds will eventually catch up to him. But there's a lot of painful lessons that hurt financially, emotionally, but like, I'm glad I learned them now and not later. I have my 2 stores right now. I have 2 franchises going up in Atlanta, potentially 2 to 4 going in Mississippi. I should have another 3 to 4 before the year's over in Connecticut. Actually, in a week and a half, we close on a gym that we're buying in Glastonbury. It was Workout World Fitness, but we're buying that. And, I'm doing that with 2 of my friends and my brother. I'm bringing him on my part of the equity of that gym to give him a stake in the game. But yeah, that's kind of where things are at now. I have Sup Life as the retail store. It's basically a bar for healthy people. We do acai bowl shakes, meals. It's not just a transactional situation where a lot of these supplement stores are. It's a place. Well, why do people go to the bar and spend $10 on a drink? Not because they get good value in the drink. It's because the atmosphere they're buying. We offer the same thing here.
Cool. So what's been I know there's a lot of lessons when you own businesses, but what are a couple of things maybe just over the last couple of years? What are some of those lessons that you've learned that pertain to business, and maybe something that you can share, Tim, with us that we can kind of glean from you and maybe apply as we would pursue owning our own business, whatever that might be?
Everything we do has risks. Bodybuilding, I don't know why people don't talk about it, maybe because there's stigma behind it. Anabolics, it has risks. Vaccines have risks, especially those who are on anabolics, taking vaccines to go to different countries. There's no reason why some of these bodybuilders are passing away, because our heart's already under more stress with all the muscle. Even if you're not on anabolics, you have an over amount of muscle. My brother's 170 pounds. I'm 250 pounds. Just the extra weight that I'm carrying puts more stress on my organs, especially my heart. So everything we do has risks. It has to be calculated risks. Business is the same. You have to make sure that the risks you're going to take are worth it. America wasn't founded because no risks were taken. We lost 66% of the people coming here. That's a risk that they were willing to take so that America could be founded. You have to make sure that whatever the risk versus reward is, it has to be calculated well enough so that, yeah, I'm going to go through and take this. In doing so, you're going to have a lot of people that you develop relationships with, friendships with. Unapologetically, business has to come first. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be a prick to anybody, but business has to come first. So many times, I've put other people first. I've put other things first. When it comes to business and running the business, that's how you feed your family. That has to come first unapologetically. If you can disassociate that and, emotions with that and make sure you're prioritizing your business, which means you're prioritizing your family, you're okay. But it has to unapologetically come first. And the other thing too is, we work so hard. You're an entrepreneur, you have a gym and, whatever avenues of business you're in, we work so hard to create a better financial future for us, for our family, for our friends, whatever it may be. I see one of the biggest mistakes all the time. People work so hard at what they're doing to enjoy the things of life that because they're working so hard, they don't end up enjoying the things of life that they're working hard for. My son's 3, he just turned 3 in September. If I have to leave early, if I have to close my store an hour or 2 early, like, I'm okay with that. Like, I will be there. I will be present in my family's life. So they're going to say, yeah, daddy was there. Daddy was at my first motocross. Daddy was at my soccer game, my football game. Even if it means that, I have to sacrifice something, or if I have to pay an employee to take my spot, I'll do that. But prioritize family, prioritize business, and make sure you treat people right. The other thing I'll say, when it comes to business, a lot of people go from working a nine to five, so to say, a regular job, and that's fine. It's just a lot of security now, more than I have. I'm up at night at 3 a.m. thinking about different things financially, and I don't have that peace that a lot of these people have that work a regular job. A lot of people come from a 9 to 5 environment where they may have a manager, supervisor, and then an owner or a boss. You have 2 or 3 bosses. Oh, I have my own business. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have any bosses. Wrong. Every single person you come in contact with, every step of the way, every day, that person is your boss because it's a potential customer. Every customer that you have and every customer that you don't have that you may have, that will be your boss. Because if you're not satisfying that customer, you're not going to have business. You go from having 2 to 3 bosses to thousands of bosses, depending on what arena you're in the business. So just treat everybody with respect. I don't care if they're gay, straight, transgender, black, white. I don't care what your beliefs are, who you voted for. Everybody has respect. You treat them with respect. You love people. If they're disrespectful to you, that's one thing. But when they come into your store, when you talk to people, it doesn't matter what their walk of life is. Treat them with love and respect, and you'll be successful.
Very well said. I appreciate that, Tim. Okay, now let's take a step back and let's start kind of getting into competitive bodybuilding and all that. Now, I want to ask, because most of us start lifting weights at some age, most of the time, us guys, for sport. So I want to ask you, Tim, when were you first actually exposed to bodybuilding? And then, how were you exposed? Was it through a magazine or talk about that for a minute?
I was going to Energy Fitness in Torrington, Connecticut, and they've now relocated the Energy Fitness factory. They're a little lower in Torrington if you're looking at it geographically. Brett now owns that. But when I was going there, Rob and Luke, this gay couple, owned it, and I fell in love with it. And there was a guy who was a trainer there, Gordon Falsetti. He coaches quite a few people. And Gordon's like, you got potential. For what? He's like, bodybuilding. I was 19. I was deadlifting 600 pounds. I was all natural all the time. He's like, you should do a bodybuilding show. But I don't really know anything about it. He's like, I'll coach you. So I hired him as my coach. We actually competed at the same show. He was a heavyweight. I was a light heavyweight. But he kind of took me under his wing. And I bought John Meadows' training program. That's when I first met John at 19. So that's 2009. I forget the name of the program it was. It was freaking awesome. I still do it to this day. I just did it yesterday. I did leg hamstring curls. I did 4 or 5 sets of 12 with 20 partials at the bottom without changing the weight. And it is brutal. It annihilates you. But I learned that from the best, John Meadows, the best physically, the best emotionally, spiritually, the best family man. John Meadows is the best. He'll always be a legend. But I got into the bodybuilding scene actual bodybuilding like 2009, 2010. I did a couple shows back to back. I cheated my first show. Like I had sick genetics. Like, oh yeah, like, I was at work working with intellectually disabled people, freaking eating pizza. And my buddy's like, I'm gonna tell Gordon. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna kill you. You better not. He's like, I'm telling Gordon. So Gordon's like, yo, I heard you eating Cheez-Its and pizza. And I'm like, yeah. So I took fourth. I think it was New Connecticut show, East Coast Cup, then New England Championships in Boston. Been in a couple shows in Jersey, I think New York, then again in Connecticut. And then it was time to gear up and do my first national show. And of course, I don't know why, I picked the hardest one there was, North Americans in 2016. At this point, Chris Tuttle was my coach. And 10 days prior to North Americans, I won the New Jersey State show, whatever it was, Jason Arntz's show. And won the overall. I was 218 pounds. So top of the heavyweight class is 223. Light heavies is 198 to 176. So I was 218. I was pretty good. Could have been a little more conditioned, but I looked good. 10 days was North Americans, and Tuttle was like, dude, we're getting into light heavies. And I'm like, 20 pounds? Like, well, we can't do that. I got down to 208. I was in Pittsburgh. No, where was it? Yeah, it's Pittsburgh, I think. I got down to 208. I was in a hotel room. I had nothing left in me. I was streaming. And I'm like, Chris, I don't think we'd be down to 198. He's like, we can. So I'm 5'8". I'm like, okay. So somebody's like, having 5'5" with freaking diesel. So I went to the sauna for like 6 hours on and off. So I finally 198.6. I made weight and then I was dead. I probably should have had like 3 large pizzas to like fill out because my glycogen stores were completely depleted. I had nothing in me, and we didn't have enough time to then carb up and get food in me so that my muscles could pop. I ended up stepping on stage at like 206, 207. And I was very, very, very upset. You know, I thought I was going to be top 3. I was, you know, I wasn't hashtag pro card like a lot of these, oh, hashtag pro card, my time. I wasn't that, but like in my head, I was top 3. It was Jordan Janowitz, I think Adam White. We're going to be top 3, 1, 2, and 3. Holy crap, was I humbled. I was, so there was 3 groups of 10 for light heavies, but the third group had 11, and my name was the last name, Terwilliger. So the stage was meant for 8. So the lights, you know, were the 8 spots. So now we have 10. The guys in the end don't have lighting on them. And here I am over here, number 11. And as I'm looking at the judges, begging them to look at me, like I get one of them to look at me. And I'm like, but it's not their fault. I'm all the way over here. I'm nobody. I'm not anybody like influential or special. It's my first national show. And I was humbled really bad. I made a video. I was like, you know, these judges are nobodies. Who are they in life? And blah, blah, blah. And I was very upset. And then I caught some flack about that publicly, which rightfully so. I was like, you know, I was a little punk. I was like, yeah, it's the judge's fault, not mine. No, it was my fault, you know. And Chris and I have, you know, we've been friends and we've talked since then. And we both could have done things differently. I was conditioned, but I was a stream beat. We just had a talk about 4 or 5 days ago, and we're excited because he's going to fill me out, and I'm going to use him for nationals next year. You know, unfortunately, Bostin Lloyd died. He was my coach, and I learned a lot from Boston. And I'll talk about how our relationship started, you know, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. But you know, I was just talking to Chris today. He's like, dude, I've learned so much as a coach since I coached you last, and like we're gonna do things way different. And I can't wait. I'm like, great, I can't wait either. He's like, I need you at the 20-week mark, 20 weeks out, and then we'll hit it full steam. So the goal is next year we're gonna do nationals again. I was gonna do this year, but after pushing things hard for like 2 years with Boston, and business needed to get focused on, and now I have a daughter coming. I need to prioritize, and bodybuilding is not a sport, it's a hobby. You know, some of these guys get paid really well off the hobby, you know, the guys at the Olympia and stuff like that. It could come second to my family. It could come second to my business. I have to keep that perspective because bodybuilding does not pay my bills. So
okay, so you touched on you gave us a little bit of your competition now. So I want you to fill in the gaps a little bit. So North Americans 2016 was your first pro qualifier, correct?
yes.
Okay, so then What other pro qualifiers have you done after that initial one in 2016, Tim?
I took time off. I was never, I could probably pull videos up. I'm never stepping on stage again. I'm done with bodybuilding. Forget bodybuilding. You know, the judges don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Just like any salty person who got 16th place would talk about, you know. So I took time off. And then I think what I needed to see is I needed to get in a place mature wise, spiritual wise, life wise, business wise, where I don't identify as a bodybuilder first. I identify as a family man, as a father, as a husband, as a businessman. Bodybuilding is just part of who I am, but it's down here, not up here on the list. And once I was able to put things in perspective, I was able to have a better prep. I was able to just have a better attitude, better outlook on things. Um, so I contacted Bostin, and we've been friends for a while, me and Bostin Lloyd, but I contacted him in 2019. I'm like, hey, I want to do nationals in 2021. He was all right, we'll get you going. So 2020, at the end of 2020, we reconvened and we started hitting it really hard. And I went from like 218 pounds, I got up to 256 pounds. And then we had a pretty good prep. I mean, it was good. The only thing I did the first time ever doing DNP, very harsh fat burner. Not what I expected, but I was sweating, I was out of breath. In 30 pounds, I lost 30 days, I lost 30 pounds, literally a pound per day. And I'm already very lean. But I'm a very aggressive, I wouldn't say like Branch Warren where he kind of half reps it sometimes, but I'm a very aggressive trip. Like when I train, I'm not like slow and methodic usually. I give it my all. And not that people who are slow and methodic don't give their all, but I'm very like aggressive when I train. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that DNP drives out the mitochondria, the muscle. And when I was squatting, 495, I was on my third rep. That's nothing to me. Bang, my TFL, it just popped. Oh. 3 days later, I'm incline pressing dumbbells. My shoulder, pec, whatever, pop. Like, what was going on? Oh, it's the DNP. I did a little research. So I had to run some peptides, but in doing that, I wasn't able to really grow into the show. I kind of lost some density and fullness. I did the Connecticut East Coast Cup, Montanari Brothers put on in East Haven. I won the overall there as a heavyweight. I stepped on stage at 223, so right at the top of the heavyweight class. And then 8 weeks later was national, so it was kind of weird because I did like a 4-week recomp with a 4-week cut, and I was more conditioned for nationals. I ended up stepping on stage at 221.8. No, I'm sorry, I weighed in at 221.8. I stepped on stage a few pounds heavier, but I didn't do a lot of cardio, man. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I don't know if it was all the different things I was taking or me finally following a diet the way I should have. I didn't do a lot of cardio. I ended up out of 44 guys, I think it was for the heavyweight class, which of course, the 1 year I decided to do nationals instead of 20 something guys, there's 44 guys in there. Actually, to put things in perspective, Justin O'Donnell, he's a really good dude. He got fifth last year at nationals, or not last, so 2020, he got fifth. This year, he was bigger, fuller, better, more conditioned, and he got 12th, I think, or 13th. And I placed, this isn't any kind of flex on Justin. I placed one better than Justin. I think he was a lot forward than me. I think he looked better than I did, but it just goes to show how competitive this year was for nationals because, it was crazy. But the difference was when I got the place I got, I deserved that. I didn't deserve to be top 3 or top 5. And I had my family there. I was able to spend time with my son and my wife, and it was good. It was a really good time. It was a good experience. Yeah, it was good. And like I said, I plan on doing nationals 2022, but it's not going to happen because of priorities. Priorities need to come first, and it'll happen in 2023.
Yeah, Justin's been on the podcast a couple times, and he's definitely an awesome guy. And he's down in Florida now, and I'm excited to see what next year is going to bring for him too. Okay, so let's talk about your relationship with Bostin Lloyd. How did you kind of connect with him, and why did you decide to reach out to him to coach you kind of on your, we'll just call it a comeback tour?
Yeah, so ironically enough, in 2009 or 10, I could probably find our Facebook messages. I had reached out to him at like 1 a.m. when I was living in New York, and we started arguing. I messaged him on Facebook. Bostin was 3 years younger than me. And we were arguing because who's this 18-year-old kid talking about steroids? Who's this 18-year-old kid? Like, what kind of message are you putting out there to kids? And I mean, I wish I could take back now, but I'm like, you're gonna die young. You're gonna die before anyone else because of what abuse you're doing to your body. And we argued probably till 3 or 4 in the morning. And the next day we started talking again and we became pretty good friends. And though I didn't agree with him at the time with what he was doing at his age, I didn't have to. I took a step back and I saw Bostin for who Bostin was. And he was, look, this is what I'm doing. I don't care what other people do. This is my journey. I'm going to document it and I'm going to show you all the good and all the bad along my journey. And because of that, he got a target on his back. Nobody talks about anabolics. Nobody broadcasts. Oh, it's a hush hush thing in bodybuilding. Nobody's natural on that Olympia stage. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody's natural on that national stage. And we don't have to talk about anabolics, but the one thing that I really loved about Bostin is he was unapologetically honest. And, I went from hating Bostin to literally loving Bostin. And he was a family man. He prioritized his life, with his wife and his kids, Ariella and, Jackson. And they were trying to get pregnant for the last year and a half. And unfortunately, he succumbed to the kidney issues that he had. And there was a lot of talk about, the toxicology report and opiates found. On leg day, Bostin would pop a little bit of a pain pill because he was in so much pain and he needed that. Bostin never did drugs, other than obviously anabolics and peptides and stuff like that. But we had a really good relationship. And Bostin always said, hey, here's what I would do. This is what we can do. This is what's going to be the outcome of it. Here are the risks, the mitigated risks involved in this. It's up to you. We can go at whatever speed you want. And he just kept it transparent, honest, and he was the most genuine person that I think I had ever met.
Cool. So talk about then you obviously had Chris Tuttle as your coach in 2016, but now you're going to have him kind of lead you into 2023. So talk about maybe why you decide to kind of go back to Chris. He's also been on the podcast a couple of times. Super cool guy, very knowledgeable. So touch on that relationship.
So Chris knows more than I do. There's no doubt about that. Chris has been doing it longer. I believe his dad's a doctor. Chris is engrossed with probably 300-400 clients a month. I probably only have 30 to 40 clients a month because I can only handle so many. I bounce things off of Chris, as did Bostin. Bostin and Chris would talk on a regular basis. I think I made mistakes going into North Americans, and I think Chris made mistakes going into North Americans. And when you look at his bodybuilders now, he'll take an average guy, and that guy or girl looks so crisp and so nasty on stage. My ex-wife actually used Chris and Alexia for her first Olympia prep, I believe. Knowledge is infinite. And Chris, since the last time I was with him, it's been 6 years and it'll be coming up on 7. Chris just wants to do the best, and the proof is in the pudding. And how awesome would it be to come back? And I mean, obviously nobody competes in a sporting event in bodybuilding for 2nd, 3rd, 16th place. So obviously we all go for 1st place, but how awesome would it be to come back and bring a completely different package with a completely different approach? We're still friends, but bring us that much closer and kind of finish what we set out to do back in 2015 and 16. Yeah. I just was talking to Chris, like I said, 4 or 5 days ago. I had clients compete at a show in Connecticut about a week ago, 3 or 4 clients. And this kid, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's been competing for a year, and he's a self-proclaimed coach now. He's questioning my clients on show day. Why are you eating protein? That's stupid. You should only be eating carbs. So I messaged Chris. I'm like, Chris, help me understand this. Like, you know more than I do, so I want to make sure that I'm not wrong. Protein is derived from the Greek word protease, right? And that means first. It prioritizes the digestion. When it comes to the digestive process, protein is digested first. When I've prepped I've had my coaches prep me. I've had 10 different coaches, and I've prepped other clients. You always have some sort of protein paired with carb, whether it's 2 ounces, 8 ounces, 6 ounces, whatever it may be. You have some sort of protein paired with a carbohydrate. The reason being is when protein is digested first, it then releases and helps the pancreatic enzymes release that you need to then, insulin, stuff like that, so that you can then have the glycogen process started and it fills out the muscle. Not only that, but if you're having protein for the last 6 months, protein and carbs for every single meal, and all of a sudden you pull the protein out, what's going to happen? Why would you switch that up? That's number one. Number two, the acid in the stomach that is, then creating release from the protein signaling for, happen for the other nutrients to come follow, that needs to happen. So without protein, you're not going to get this digestive process kickstarted the way you need to. The other thing is, if you just have 200 grams of rice, whatever it may be on show day, every 2 hours or whatever it is, the problem then is your stomach's going to digest, it's going to go convert glycogen, it's going to digest, whatever, and then your stomach should feel empty. Protein takes longer to digest. When your stomach feels empty, all of a sudden the glycogen stores in your muscle that start to go are going to start to deflate. Why are you flat on stage now? Well, because you're hungry and your stomach realizes that, and your body's gonna be like, hey, wait a minute, we need those nutrients. So I had talked to Chris regarding this. I'm like, help me understand, make sure I'm not wrong in my train of thought. After the studies, research that I've done on this is where my mindset is at. He's like, Tim, I've had Chris Tuttle, I've had all these guys. He goes, do you think Hani Rambod is walking around at shows and some guy's like, oh, why are you doing that to Hani's, his client? You think he's gonna stop and argue him? Because let people be people. Let them be, ignorant to why. If that's what works for them, let them do what works for them. He's like, no, that doesn't make sense. And I would never done that. It's never been done for me from any of the top coaches that I've had. And I've never done it for any of my clients. I've never even heard of that. But don't waste your time with that. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Why did I care? So it was good. But Chris is a good dude. He's got a really good attitude. He's been in the trenches. 2014, I believe he's got his pro card at nationals. And I'm excited to put to use what he's learned, what I've learned, and our maturity in life. I'm going to be 7 years older now. He's going to be 7 years older now. It's going to be a really good combination to attack it together.
And when he was competing, man, I loved his physique. He had an amazing physique to say the least, right?
Yeah, right. Again, proof is in the pudding. When I'm in my store, somebody comes to ask for advice on putting muscle on or nutrition or fat burners, whatever, I have to somewhat look the part so they can trust me. Chris looks the part. He's looked the part. So we at least have that going.
For sure. So what is your personal goal then, Tim, when you step back on a national stage in 2023? What would you like to accomplish?
As long as Justin O'Donnell stays super heavy, because he's like 200,000 pounds now. He's 285, 290 pounds. No, I'd like to, I don't know. I haven't really focused on growing right now. I mean, I'm a little bigger, but I haven't really been eating the way that I should. I've been my time is all over the place with business right now. So yeah, it's excuses, but they're legitimate excuses. I need to focus on putting on quality size again and hopefully putting on a little more density and fullness in my muscle bellies and staying full coming into the show. Obviously my goal is to win my pro card. When I was 21, I wrote down life goals. The third goal in life was to bench 400 pounds. The fifth goal in life was to get my IFBB Pro card. Obviously I accomplished a lot of these different goals, but call it unfinished business, call it whatever you want. I just feel like I don't need it to identify as the IFBB Pro bodybuilder, but it's unfinished business, and if I show up and bring my best package and you have some of these freaks like Jordan Janowitz and, some of these other guys. I mean, I was watching this kid, Blake, I think his name was, he's 23 years old, 24 years old. He's somewhere in the Midwest. Guy's benching 600 pounds for reps. I'm like, here I am. I'm like, 515, it's a sick bench, bro. And this freaking kid who got third or fourth place in a heavyweight class, I'm like, well, I hope he moves up a class because he's an animal. So I don't know. It all depends on who shows up in shape that day. It all depends on, how well we do with the prep. And obviously I trust Chris, but going back to what I said a few minutes ago, we don't compete for second place. If I'm going on stage, I want first place, but I have to do what I have to do, in order to do that. I will say though, I will not ever put anything before my family. Anabolics, vaccines, nothing. My family comes first. So if I'm ever in a spot where health is coming into question, I will put it to rest forever. I don't care that much. my children, my wife come first, you know. So I will keep things in perspective that way.
You being in Connecticut, have you ever crossed paths with Evan Senapani?
Love Evan, guys.
He's a good guy,
Literally,
huh?
literally the nicest guy you'll ever meet. I mean, he is just so. First of all, he's a freaking like he belongs in like the Game of Thrones or something. Like his calves and his biceps. You're like, how? Like, who is this freak? Like, what planet did you come from? He just has that wow factor. But Evan, I would put him in the same class of people as John Meadows. Evan is just my first time meeting him. He knew my name. I'm nobody. I'm Tim Terwilliger from New Hartford, Connecticut. You know, he knew my name. He spent time with me. He shook my hand, and at the different shows, I would see him. You know, when I cross paths with him here and there across Connecticut, I still, you know, have a short conversation with him. Evan is, you know, the ox, but like the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Him and John Meadows, same class of people. John Meadows, you don't ever get better than him as a person. Evan Santapani is in the same class as John Meadows. They're both just Evan's one of the best people you ever meet.
We're going to start wrapping up, but I want to ask you, people always love to kind of hear kind of some training talk. So you mentioned earlier, kind of the way that the style that you train and the manner that you train, but kind of what's been your go-to training split over the years, and has your training evolved over the years? If so, how so?
So I'm going to read to you a text message that one of my close friends, Matt Goulet, texted me last night. He's 21. He's all natural, big kid. He sent me a few pictures. Said, all right, bro, I need to get bigger. Should I go heavier on the first few lifts and then more reps on some exercises, or stay heavy throughout the whole workout? I said, yes to both of those things, Mac. It's not so much heavier, lighter, and higher reps. It's a combination for sure of both of them, because I do believe that you need time under tension, slow and controlled, heavy and aggressive, literally everything to stimulate the muscle, you know, muscle fat, all these different aspects of growing the muscle. I said the main thing is training at full intensity every single rep, every single set. If you do this, no matter how you train, you'll grow. I think oftentimes, me included, I'm looking at my workout from 2 days ago, not yesterday because I killed it yesterday, but how many times do you go to the gym? You have like one good set. You're like, all right, last set, let's give it my all, right? Is that how Dorian trained? Is that how Ronnie trained? Every single set, every single rep was maximum intensity. Why would we train any different? You know, yes, I train heavy. You know, when I bench, you know, I'll go up and I'll bench heavy and I'll do, you know, 5, 6, 7 reps or 3 reps or whatever. I'll train till failure, you know, train past failure, force reps, pause reps, you know, rest pauses, different things like that. There's there's dog crap training, there's FST7 training, there's all these different ways to train. And all these guys who use these different training methods all look really good. What's the secret? The secret is training at full intensity, every single rep, every single set. And get off your effing phone in between sets. Keep your music going, but stop with all this phone stuff. You know, go look at Ronnie, go look at Dorian. Maybe it's because they didn't have iPhones, but they're not on the phones. They're there to work out. Be there to work out. Be present in your workout. And I tell people all the time when my headphones go on and my hat goes down, if I'm wearing a hat to cover my bald head, nothing else in this world matters. Nothing matters. As selfish as that sounds, that's my time. That's my time in my day to decompress. I don't go to therapy. Yes, I read my Bible. I go to the church every Sunday. I'm active in that community. But my time every day, if I didn't have this, I'd probably be crazy. I shut the world off. And before I go for a heavy lift, I tap in, and the only thing that matters is completing that lift. And every single rep is as intense as I get. And if I'm shooting for 12 reps and I can get 19, I'm doing 19. If I'm shooting for 12 reps and I can only get 6 or 7, I'm only getting 6 or 7. I'm dropping it. I'm doing a drop set. It's not so much how you train. It's making sure that you have intensity through every single rep and every single set.
That answers that question, huh?
Yeah.
I love it, man. What's been what's your training split kind of look like then, Tim?
I usually do like one muscle group per day. I have for the last 16 years, you know. I'm getting older. I'm 32 now, but I'm definitely feeling a little more aches and pains. You know, I was watching some videos the other day of me like squatting. I think it was 495 for like 12, 15 reps. And like bang, 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 like a piston. Now I'm like, oh man, like I'm getting ready for the set. I'm like, this is gonna hurt, you know. But I'll still train like, you know, hams and quads same day. I'll still train chest, maybe shoulders, the way that John always kind of paired them together. Buys and tries. Sometimes I'll be back and buys, but I like to keep arms together. I'll hit calves twice a week. I'll be honest with you, you know, if you go to my Instagram, big two underscore, I don't like you'll see me in pictures. I have abs. I probably haven't trained abs, which I should. It's lazy, me being lazy. But I haven't trained abs in like 7 years. And it's pathetic because if I just trained them, that's the centerpiece of my physique. They'd probably be a lot better than what they are. But I haven't trained them like 6 or 7 years. But yeah, I train probably. I listen to my body. That's the other thing. Just because you have legs every Monday or back on Thursday, if you're not recovered, take a day off, dude. You're gonna do more damage than you are good. You're not gonna grow if you're sore and you need like if your body needs a break, listen to it and take a break. It's simple. Like if you need an extra day off, you're not gonna lose out by training 5 days a week instead of 6 or 4 days a week instead of 5. Your body needs a break. Listen to it.
Um, who are some of the current guys on the IFBB circuit that you really like respect their physiques and think like, man, that'd be kind of cool to compete against them at some point?
I don't know if I'll ever be able to. Uh, you look at Martin Fitzroy or what I think
Fitzwater.
Fitzwater. I remember when I was bigger than him, I'm like, oh, this kid looks good. Maybe one day he'll be. I'm looking at him like, what the frick kind of water did you drink to get like that? And he didn't. It's same with Justin O'Donnell. I messaged Justin the other day. He posted 286 today. I'm like, Justin, what the frick are you doing? He's like, bro, I'm just eating. I'm eating. You got to look at if you want to get big, no matter what supplements, drugs, how you train, you have to eat. You have to eat. If you want to be 280 and you're 250, you got to eat like a 320-pound person would, not a 280-pound person would. If you're 180 pounds, you want to get to 240, you got to eat like a 300-pound person. You can't eat like a 240-pound person would. So, some of these guys that just blow up, it's, different concoctions, different genetics, but it's food. You got to eat. Martin's sick. Ben Rafala is one of my close friends. He's from Connecticut. He's a state trooper. Ben has always looked good. I remember when me and Ben were kind of neck and neck back in like 2015, 14 maybe. We both looked great. We're both pretty much the same size, and now he's just a freaking animal too. He got his pro card at Nationals in 2018. I don't know. I don't know that if I got my pro card, if I would do a show right after. It would depend on my family, my business, and my health. My goal right now is to get my pro card. It's not to stand on stage next to pros. And being a pro, like, you need Nate Spear, Jordan Janet, like these guys are awesome people. And I'm friends with them. I've seen them for a while. I don't know that I'd love to share a stage with them just for the camaraderie aspect, not to beat them or be better than them. But when you find a good group of guys, there's this black kid, Michael Van Roy or Van Rich, I forget his name. He's from Maine. His Instagram is the main event. He got 13th or 14th. He was second calls with me and Justin O'Donnell. I don't really care. Like, I don't have more or less respect for somebody who's a pro. If we're all in this together and we're all on the same journey, it's just those guys figured it out faster. Guys that I look up to, Nick Walker, I've been friends with him for a little bit. We don't talk on a regular basis. We did before he became really big. He's a beast. Derek Lunsford, he's a beast. I think he got his pro card at USA's. His physique is beautiful. It's just beautiful. One of the best physiques I loved over the last 5-10 years was Sean Roden. Every time I saw him, his physique was absolutely beautiful. His lines, his symmetry, just beautiful. It was unfortunate that he passed away. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know if I have a driving factor behind me to say, oh, I want to get on stage with these guys and compete with them. I want to try to get my pro card and then from there figure it out. Kind of see where life is at that time.
For sure. Love it. So you said earlier that when you were, I think like 21, you had like a list of life accomplishments that you wanted to accomplish. What was number one, or is that something private?
No, number one was to pay my parents' mortgage off, and
cool.
I'm hopefully in the next 2.5 years I could do that. My dad had a massive heart attack when he was 2014, June 24th. He flatlined twice. Then he had he came back. He's nuts. He's 73, still cutting trees. His heart operates at like 30% of what it should. 2017, he had a transischemic attack. It's like a mini stroke. 2019, he had this freaking 15-pound mass removed from his stomach. It was benign, but like the way that my parents have always put us first, like I want them to just enjoy. They enjoy life. I mean, enjoying life doesn't mean that you're financially well off. You have to have joy no matter what situation or circumstance you're in. But my number one goal and my number one goal then and now is to pay their mortgage off. And I've pursued that to a fault at times in my life where it's had negative impact on me, but the heart desire has always been to pay my parents' mortgage off.
Cool, man. Very, very cool. So kind of the wrap up question here for you, Tim, is maybe somebody that's a little bit younger than us. I'm 35, so I've got you by 3 years, but
yeah.
Maybe somebody that's a little bit younger than us, they're just maybe just getting into bodybuilding and thinking about competing and all that. What are just some words of wisdom or words of experience from your own life, from your own bodybuilding story that you would maybe share with those younger people in terms of bodybuilding? Maybe some things to think about, maybe some things to avoid. What do you got for us in that realm?
Couple things. Food is more important than anabolics. You can't outwork a bad diet. You're not going to grow on, I don't care if you're on insulin, growth hormone, anabolics. If you don't have food, you won't grow. You want to get big, you got to eat. There was a time when I was in Boston, I was in the shower with my son. He was like a year and a half, 2 years old. And I had just got done eating my breakfast. It was like 1,100 calories. It was freaking 6 eggs, 2 English muffins, 100 grams of oats, 150 grams of berries. And there was like 10 ounces of egg whites in there. And it was too much for me to eat. So I'd hard boil the eggs and I'd cook the egg whites and I'd blend them all up together. And I'd take it back to that. I still do that. I would take it back. And it was so full that a couple times a week I was actually throwing up in the shower. And I don't recommend people throwing up when they eat because it's not going to benefit anything because then you got to eat again. But you have to get to the point where it's uncomfortable. Like prep is better than off season when you're in a true off season because the amount of food you have to eat is disgusting. But remember, nothing will work unless you do your job. When people come into my store and they're like, "Oh, I want to lose fat," I'm like, "Great, let's talk about your diet and your cardio." Well, I want to buy a supplement. Yeah, we can get to supplements. You get a fat burner and change nothing about your life, you lose 2 pounds. You change your lifestyle, make small changes, the sky's the limit. It's the same thing with bodybuilding. You want to put on weight, you want to get bigger and stronger, eat, do it the right way. The second thing is be organic, be genuine. Stop with this try hard crap. Nobody cares about that. They can sense that a mile away. Don't be a try hard. Don't, gloat. Don't love yourself more than you love other people. Just be genuine. And it'll go a long way. And third, keep things in check. Bodybuilding is not life. Some people it is, but there's more to life than bodybuilding. And when you put all of your eggs in one basket, when you put all your eggs in one cart, and that cart gets you 16th place at North Americans, you are devastated. But when that happens, use that and allow you, to be molded into something good and realize that bodybuilding is a subsect. It's an aspect of my life. Even Nick Walker is known as a bodybuilder, but he's more than a bodybuilder. We see him on social media and he shows as a bodybuilder because he's a freak, but he's more than a bodybuilder. Justin McDonald, he's 290 pounds, where the freak he is right now. He's more than a bodybuilder. He's a family man. He's got 2 beautiful daughters. He's got a home. He works at, a company, makes a good living. Like, there's more to bodybuilding. There's more to life than bodybuilding. And work as hard as you can. Keep your form first and foremost. Keep your nutrition where it needs to be. But realize that bodybuilding there needs to be a balance. There needs to be a balance.
Awesome, man. Tim, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your life story with us, sharing your bodybuilding story, man. It's always, fun for all of us just to kind of watch and listen to all of you guys just kind of share your side of things. Before I do a quick outro and let you go, any final thoughts, any final words that you have? Give us your Instagram. I know you mentioned it earlier, but give it to us one more time. any shout outs, anything in terms of like your stores, your businesses, anything you got going on. I'm going to turn it over to you, and then I'll do a quick outro, and that'll be a wrap.
Sure. So again, my supplement stores, Sup Life, Vitamins, Nutrition. We do pretty well. We are franchising, so if anybody has money, they want to franchise, feel free to contact me. My Instagram is Big Twig one, or no, it's Big Twig underscore. Yeah, it's Big Twig underscore. It's got like 22,000 followers, not a lot of followers on there. Yeah, I just, for me, I can't say this for everybody because not everybody believes the same I do, but the one thing when bodybuilding is a letdown, and life is a letdown, and family is a letdown, and friends are a letdown, and your diet's a letdown, and you're a letdown, the one thing that has always stayed consistent with me is my faith. And without that foundation, thankful for my parents. I mean, I made that decision at a young age on my own, but I don't know where I'd be without bodybuilding, but I don't know where I'd be without, Jesus and my faith in my life, because that has grounded me when I've lost friends. That's grounded me through my divorce that I had. That's grounded me through, the lowest of lows. There was a time going through my divorce, I had a pistol in my mouth for 3 weeks every night, and I was in dark places. And there's so much more to, that aspect in that area of my life. But I wouldn't be where I am today without my faith and without God's grace, with my beautiful family and the path that I'm on right now that I'm headed to. So, just no matter what it is, if it's faith that you have, or if it's something else that you have, just keep things in perspective. And for me, I love bodybuilding, but it's not everything. It's not everything.
Cool. All right, man. I really appreciate you coming on once again, Tim. And I'll make sure that your Instagram's down in the show notes for everybody if they want to reach out to you. Okay.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate you having me. And anytime you want to come to Connecticut, feel free. I'll have you. I'll host you. Come work out with me, and if I'm there, I'll come say what's up. Come to the gym, and we'll hang out.
It'll have to be in the summertime because Connecticut weather and Iowa weather are pretty similar in the winter. So I'll take you up there maybe summer or spring. Okay.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good.
All right. All of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle Podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much. I appreciate all of you. I value all of you. And if it weren't for all of you, the podcast simply wouldn't exist. So thank you so much for all of your support. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and also take this episode with Tim, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Tim, tag Behind the Muscle, so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.